So we're starting this week with the text, The Care Collective. Everything about this text screams a politics that is collectivist, and everything about it strives to bring about changes that it demands. From the fact that it's published as a collective author rather than a collection of individuals, through to the size and shape of the book, it's designed to be carried around in your pocket. And in that way, sort of, in my mind, is evocative of the sort of earlier collectivist manifestos, like the Communist Manifesto. It is dedicated to the cause of making us think collectively at every level of our lives. So I think it's fair to say that the earlier chapters of this manifesto have the closest relevance for nursing, but I do find that all chapters contain something for us to think about and reflect upon. I'll run through a few of the key ideas that come up for me, but I think it's such a rich text that hopefully you'll all come with your own ideas and perspectives too. So firstly, they diagnose a problem, that our communities have become uncaring. We lack the basic infrastructure to care for one another. Finding spaces to come together and offer each other peer support becomes severely curtailed when all possible spaces require payments to be made. So examples of how this has become harder in a post-COVID world include the work done by a local charity, for example, the LGBT Foundation in Manchester. Up to COVID occurring, they had occupied 2 floors of a large building on Canal Street for about 10 years and had a presence near Canal Street and in Manchester for much longer before that. So they were very much kind of at the heart of the LGBT community. As a result of this, they provided a safe space for many community groups to meet, including ones like Out with Prostate Cancer, which is a support group for gay and bi men who have prostate cancer. And the space was provided for free. Now, during COVID, it became financially untenable for them to continue to pay for their offices, so they converted to an online-only service provider. But consideration needs giving to the sort of infrastructure that exists in society, whether these changes become long-term and then the infrastructure for support starts degrading. And Canal Street itself has been an area in Manchester that has been changing rapidly in the past 4 or 5 years. There are large developments going up, property rents are going up, and again, profit is becoming the central motive for how that area develops, rather than care. So the next thing that the Care Collective raised for us is they also challenged the idea of dependency on care as pathological, instead highlighting that we are all always and already dependent on one another. However, as nurses, we can often be implicated in this pathologisation of needing care, with patients sometimes being spoken about in a derogatory manner if they sort of fail to care for themselves. There's a certain, therefore, disciplinary force applied to these patients. The final theme that I think is very stimulating to think about is promiscuous care. Now, promiscuous care is about caring for others that we may not have close connections with. This is rooted in approaches to care taken during the AIDS crisis, where people often cared for their lovers and friends in ways that were capacious and open to the risks and the burdens and the joys that could come with this. Yet it also included voluntary systems such as the buddy system, where strangers, one with AIDS and one without, were paired up and care provided despite there being no previous friendship or kinship. And indeed there is an absolutely wonderful musical film called Buddy that documents this. However, key to this form of care is a resourcing issue. They're very clear, the Care Collective, that such bottom-up approaches to care cannot be an excuse for the state to evacuate its responsibilities to funding care in a sustainable way. There are therefore ethical issues at stake in providing promiscuous care and promoting it as a form of care. There remains a need to train professionals to give them the care that people need, and whilst encouraging care for others within communities is important, it has to be tempered with a community that also recognises the real value of focusing more on forms of caring. So finally, there are also connections to the idea of slowness here that we talk about in our final week. So see, for example, page 65, where they say, the best of hands-on care requires the time to slow down and maintain relational continuity, taking stock of others in order to enable those being cared for us to develop whatever scope they have for personal agency and well-being. So we can start thinking forward to our ideas of slowness, but we can also start thinking backwards to our ideas around autonomy that we explored in the first week. How can we structure caring relationships? How can we maintain and slow down so as to increase personal agency and well-being? So what we're seeing is emerging is a concern for a form of ethics and caring that critiques efficiency and considers what may be lost when we speed up the process of care. Of course, this can sort of butt up against the need to provide the greatest good to the greatest number. And there are always tensions in ethics, and many of these texts, of course, speak to each other in contradictory ways. And I would encourage you to sit with those contradictions. We see many of the themes in Ali Day's paper also coming up in the next slide. Now, for those of you that want to, there is a video with Jamie Hakim, who is one of the authors for the Care Manifesto. As a quick heads up, please excuse the slight glitch in the video about halfway through. It resolved after 20 seconds and it was quite difficult for me to edit it out. But hopefully the video with Jamie gives you a bit more insight into how the text came about and the process for